Victoria arrogantly claims she is the only suitable wife for the prince, questioning how a commoner could dream of marrying him. Undeterred, Victoria boldly challenges him to provide proof of his accusations. The dark-haired knight strikes with a blade, leaving a shocked Victoria bleeding. A modern woman suddenly wonders if she has been reincarnated into the doomed body of the villainess murdered by her own knight. She remembers escaping her exhausting corporate job by reading romantic novels before bed. Exhaustion finally killed her right after she finished reading one of those fantasy stories. Waking up in a strange room, she panics upon realizing the body in the mirror is not her own. She deduces she has reincarnated as Victoria, the wicked rival from the novel, The Destined Prince and Cinderella. The original Lady Victoria was a selfish noblewoman who jealously attempted to murder the kind-hearted commoner heroine. Doomed to die by her own knight's hand, she snaps back to reality when someone notes her fever has broken. She immediately recognizes the dark-haired man checking on her as Cain Cornelius, the very knight destined to kill her, and quickly claims she feels completely fine. Cain stares at Lady Victoria with an unreadable, intense expression. A maid interrupts to announce mealtime, prompting Cain to excuse himself. Cain casts a silent, lingering glance back toward the room. Victoria reflects on her new identity as the pampered eldest daughter of the distinguished Rosewind family. Joining the dining table, she realizes the novel provided no details about her family as her sister expresses relief over her awakening. Her mother warns her not to act rashly over a man, while her father notes the letters of concern that arrived during her illness. Sitting quietly, Victoria observes them and confirms these individuals are indeed her parents. Her younger sister mentions mounting complaints from residents regarding damages caused by a recent monster attack. Their father stubbornly dismisses demands to reduce agricultural taxes, insisting the peasants should recognize who protects them from the monsters. Victoria remembers that eliminating monsters was a recurring central theme in the original novel. Realizing she is truly trapped in another world, she listens to her father insist on collecting taxes to strengthen their military forces. She impulsively questions whether they will deny economic support to the struggling residents. Panicking over her slip of the tongue, she freezes as her father sternly demands she clarify her statement. She quickly argues that failing to restore agricultural productivity will severely damage the entire region's economy. She suggests that providing financial and material support to the residents would be a better strategy. To her surprise, her father erupts into hearty, amused laughter. Dismissing her opinion, he expresses surprise at her sudden interest in politics and mockingly suggests she study economics. Choosing her words carefully, Victoria quietly agrees to consider his suggestion. She resolves to guard her tongue in the future, nervously wondering if her uncharacteristic behavior has made them suspicious. Realizing she cannot pretend to be Victoria forever, she resolves to take action to avoid her tragic novel ending. As Cain calls out her name, she secretly vows that dealing with him will surely change her doomed fate of death. Piercing her with an intense glare, Cain demands to know who she truly is. Cain corners her, pointing out that the real Victoria never thanked servants, made eye contact, or discussed politics. Staring down at her with chilling suspicion, Cain questions her silence and asks if she really is who she claims to be. Refusing to back down, she firmly states she has merely been listening to what he is saying. Flashing a defiant smile, she challenges him to state who she is while mentally vowing to never accept her fated death. Leaning dangerously close to his face, she boldly asks if a slight change in behavior is enough to make a knight doubt his lady's identity. Demanding respect, she realizes Cain's obsession with Victoria runs far deeper than she ever expected. The dark reason behind Cain's intense obsession with Victoria was only revealed in the original novel after her death. The original Victoria cast a twisted seduction spell on Cain, transforming his unnatural obsession into a violent desire to kill her over time. Brushing off his suspicions, she warns him to never ask such foolish questions again while he wonders if he was wrong to doubt her. Bowing in apology, Cain takes her hand and vows to continue serving her as long as she truly is Lady Victoria. In a sudden and shocking move, Cain aggressively pins her down onto the grand bed just as he always has. Looming over her paralyzed form, he whispers darkly that he will be at her service. Utterly bewildered, she wonders if this extreme closeness is actually normal between them or just a twisted joke. Panicking internally, she wildly questions if Cain and the original Victoria were actually in a secret relationship. Blushing fiercely, she realizes it is impossible to think rationally while pinned beneath him in such a confusing situation. Mustering all her haughty villainous courage, she snaps at the bewildered knight and coldly orders him to act kindly. Processing the sudden change in mood, Kane coldly agrees to her unexpected demand and steps back. Stepping away from the tangled bedsheets, the dark-haired knight quietly buttons his black shirt in a heavy, tension-filled silence. Kane glances back to ask if something is wrong, leaving her to hope she hasn't made a fatal error in their endless psychological game. Later, in the sunlit training ground, Kane ruthlessly spars with other soldiers while visibly distracted by his thoughts. A fellow knight notices his unusual distraction and asks what is wrong with him. Staring blankly toward the towering castle walls, Kane coldly replies that it is absolutely nothing. Peeking out from a high window, Victoria clutches her racing heart as she watches him spar, terrified he almost saw her. Frustrated that the Dark Knight never leaves her alone, she realizes she must act carefully. She determines that her only chance to move freely is while Kane is completely occupied with his training. Slapping her cheeks to focus her mind, she decides there is absolutely no time left for hesitation or slackening. A brutal vision of her own blood-soaked death flashes through her mind, a perfect tragedy written for the villainess of the story. Regretting the original Victoria's use of charm magic, she resolves to do everything in her power to avoid her destined death. Striding purposefully toward the sprawling library, she prepares to execute the only survival option she has left. Scanning the massive bookshelf, Victoria searches for evidence to personally break the charm magic affecting Kane. Startled by a sudden voice, she turns to find her younger sister, Fiona, standing right behind her. Fiona politely offers her assistance, leaving Victoria hesitant since the novel lacked clear details about their relationship. Realizing her sister's help might be faster, she quickly reconsiders before firmly declining the offer. Smiling sweetly at Fiona, Victoria internally reasons it is better to keep things discreet since she lacks critical information about this world. Before parting ways, Victoria urgently requests Fiona to keep her presence a secret from her escort knight. Glancing at a stack of books, she casually brushes off Fiona's confusion by claiming she just feels a little restless. Returning to the towering shelves, she pulls out another book and confidently assumes she covered her tracks well. Holding a dark tome embossed with a pentagram, a brief pang of guilt strikes her for lying to such a sweet girl. Her eyes widen in absolute triumph as she realizes this is the exact magic book she has been searching for. Opening the ominous text, she eagerly dives into the dark secrets to uncover the truth behind charm magic. A chilling voice suddenly cuts through the silence, mockingly noting her obvious excitement. Shock ripples through her body as she recognizes the dark-haired knight looming in the library. Stepping out of the shadows, Kane coldly demands to know who she was planning to meet in secret. Bewildered by the sudden accusation, a horrifying realization dawns on her regarding his twisted assumptions. The original novel painted Victoria as a greedy woman who easily approached any man, fueling Kane's reckless madness. Frustrated by his intense glare, she snaps that it is incredibly irritating he sees her as a frivolous woman. Glaring back defiantly, Victoria firmly declares she is not the type of person who behaves that way. Kane's expression softens as he apologizes for the misunderstanding, but he immediately traps her against the bookshelf. Leaning in dangerously close, a dark smile crosses his face as he asks if he can interpret her defensive words the way he wants. Flustered, she stammers that she is just doing research, while Kane purrs that being by her side is a great privilege. Trying to maintain control, she challenges his presence, prompting Kane to sharply question if this research was truly her own idea. She curses internally, remembering the real Victoria despised studying and always forced lower-status girls to do her tasks. Kane expresses a suffocating desire to see everything about her, confessing a strange pressure in his chest since she woke up. His eyes darken with menacing intent as he challenges her, coldly asking what happens if he refuses to let her go. Sweating under his intense gaze, she tries to deflect the threat by noting his unusual overprotectiveness. Calling him out on his persistence, she attempts to leave, but Kane suspiciously asks why she didn't call for him if she only wanted to research monsters. Trembling, she shoots a desperate backward glance as his dark presence suffocates the narrow aisle. In a sudden, explosive motion, Kane lunges forward and forcefully grabs her from behind as the magic book slips from her hands. Books violently scatter through the air as he tackles her downward in a chaotic, desperate embrace. Kane asks if she's hurt while holding her, leaving Victoria flustered and wondering if he just protected her. They stand close together, his dark eyes locked intensely onto her surprised face. Stepping back from the scattered mess, Kane calmly points out that the documents about monsters are on the shelf. He turns away, stating he needs a moment to calm himself down. Left alone, Victoria urgently flips through the book, only to discover with horror that the specific page detailing charm magic has been carefully ripped out. Staring at the torn spine, she wonders who could have done such a thing. Reeling from the encounter, the memory of Kane gently asking if she was okay echoes loudly in her mind. She realizes someone as dangerous as him was never supposed to worry about someone like her. At the training grounds, nobles gossip about his lethal skills, sneering that his supposed loyalty is just a show masking a potential betrayal. They bitterly whisper that he is merely a dog from a despised family of traitors. Kane reflects on his past, noting that the disgrace of the Glenfall name began when he was just a child. Born as the eldest son of the prestigious Glenfall house, his perfect life shattered the day his parents committed treason and were executed right before his eyes. Branded as the child of traitors and stoned by outsiders, the young boy realized his fate was grim unless he found the strength to survive alone. He dedicated himself relentlessly to the blade, finally achieving the lethal strength he sought. By carving a bloody path of victories on the battlefield, he earned back trust, a knighthood, and his very own name. Assigned as a simple knight to the Rosewind family as Kane Cornelius, he cast off the traitorous Glenfall legacy and met the woman he loved, Lady Victoria. He remembers her mocking him, haughtily noting that her father must be truly magnanimous to hire the son of traitors. Shaking off the memories, he touches his face, frustrated by a strange feeling that has recently taken hold of him. Despite knowing he could never mistake the woman he loves, he is deeply unsettled by how the current Lady Victoria feels like a completely different person. Gazing intensely at her back, he reassures himself that this beautiful woman is the only one for him. Standing alone in the grand hallway, he suddenly questions why he even fell in love with Lady Victoria in the first place. His thoughts are interrupted when Victoria descends the stairs, dressed elegantly for the upcoming ball. Surprised by his presence, she questions why he is there when she specifically assigned another knight to escort her. Stepping incredibly close, he blushes and declares that he could never entrust the privilege of escorting her to another man. Keeping her guard up since the crucial magic book page was torn, Victoria resolves to gather information by attending the ball. Entering the grand hall, she vows to uncover something valuable this time. As she arrives on Kane's arm, whispers immediately erupt through the crowd about Lady Victoria Rosewind's return. Scheming noblemen mock her supposedly promiscuous nature, confident that simple sweet words will get her into bed, even as others marvel at her newfound elegance. Unfazed by the massive attention, Kane sharply warns her not to stray far, just as eager men surround her demanding dances. When two bold men arrogantly suggest they all enjoy a good time together, Victoria flatly rejects them with a cold stare, leaving them utterly bewildered. Dismissing the men, Victoria claims she has no time to entertain them, wondering internally if her reaction is unlike the original Lady Victoria. A dark-haired man sneers, asking if it isn't improper for her to parade around with a traitor. Stunned by the accusation, Victoria quietly repeats the word in shock. Another noble questions how the son of state-endangering criminals dares to show his face, asking if Victoria has truly forgiven him for his parents' crimes. Victoria realizes the original story never mentioned Kane carrying such a heavy burden, while the men mockingly warn that dragging him around will tarnish her reputation. Placing a hand on her hip, she coldly challenges them to explain how Kane could possibly ruin her standing. She firmly declares that Kane has done nothing wrong, leaving the young man staring at her with wide, blushing eyes. Frustrated by her defiance, the nobles curse and walk away, complaining that they expected her to be an easy target. Kane clutches his face in distress, prompting Victoria to ask if he feels unwell while he begs her not to worry. Overwhelmed by her kindness, Kane hesitates as Victoria instructs him to sit down so she can fetch him some water. As she walks away, she casts a calculating glance over her shoulder. She politely excuses herself from the crowd, secretly hoping this is her chance to gather information without Kane noticing her absence. Suddenly, a hand clamps tightly over her mouth from behind, cutting off her gasp. Nearby guests briefly wonder if someone was just standing there, but they quickly brush off the strange disappearance. Dragged into a dim storage room and bound, Victoria struggles furiously against her ropes and demands her captors let her go. Recognizing the nobles from earlier, she watches in horror as they force a vial to her lips, claiming they want to properly return the favor for her embarrassing them. Coughing and gagging, she glares fiercely at her attackers and demands to know what they just made her drink. One of the men holds up the empty vial, revealing with a sinister smile that it was a charm spell designed for them to have fun tonight. Panic sets in as she realizes she might end up blindly obeying them just like Cain, a horrific fate the men gleefully confirm. The attackers pin her down among the dusty crates, mockingly telling her not to worry. They assure her the charm spell will wear off after a good night's sleep, smiling maliciously as they promise she will soon find out what that entails. Confused and terrified, she gasps as one of them grabs her roughly by the shoulder. Suddenly, Cain bursts into the room, his fist connecting violently with one of the attackers as Victoria cries out for help. The remaining men stumble backward in terror, begging him to stop and claiming it is a misunderstanding while Cain coldly orders them to shut up. One of the panicked attackers screams at Cain to stop his assault right now. Ignoring their pleas, Cain frantically rushes to Victoria's side, calling out her name as he pulls her into his arms. He holds her fragile, tied-up body close to his chest while the beaten attackers cower on the wooden floor nearby. Trembling with rage and relief, Cain rests his bloody face against her head, holding her tightly in a fiercely protective embrace. Lifting her effortlessly into his arms, he glares down at the trembling noblemen and warns them about the consequences of their actions. His eyes burning with a lethal fury, Cain promises the terrified men that their transgressions will be reported in full. Guests at the banquet hall whisper confusedly among themselves, noticing that someone was apparently attacked. A dark-haired woman smirks knowingly in the crowd, hinting she might be aware of the incident. Meanwhile, inside a moving carriage heading away from the estate, Cain gently asks a stirring Victoria if she has finally woken up. Confused, she touches her head and notes she doesn't feel any exhaustion before suddenly remembering she was forced to drink a charm potion back at the banquet. Realizing she still feels unexpectedly reassured by Cain's presence, she wonders if the potion's effect is still ongoing as he informs her they will arrive at Rosewind Palace soon. Noticing her unease, Cain softly asks if something is bothering her, offering to have her bedroom prepared so she can rest. Gripping his lapels, she urgently replies that she wants to go to the bathroom instead of the bedroom. She shudders at the dark thought of what might have happened if Cain hadn't arrived at that exact moment. Soaking in a warm bath, she listens as Cain sincerely apologizes from the other side of the partition, while she continues to dwell on her near disaster. Standing dutifully outside the bath, he expresses deep regret for letting her be in danger while he was right beside her. When she gently tells him he is exaggerating, he insists that failing to protect her is an unforgivable failure for a knight. His eyes darken with intense resolve as he firmly refuses to brush off the incident. Standing guard just outside the glass, he vows never to let her go through such an experience again, declaring that his existence has no meaning if he cannot protect her. Victoria watches his silhouette through the frosted glass, bewildered as to why she feels so secure around a man she is supposed to fear. Cain suddenly asks if she is all right, snapping her out of her deep thoughts. Stepping out of the bathroom, Victoria stumbles slightly into his steadying grasp, thanking him and attributing her dizziness to nothing serious. Her heart races as his large hands gently support her, leaving her flustered and blushing under his careful attention. Scooping her up into his arms, Cain decides it is best to return to the room, while she nervously thinks she should be finding a way to escape him instead of relying on him. Gently placing her on the bed, a shirtless Cain receives her thanks, though his exposed chest reveals a startling sight. Victoria stares intently at his torso, her eyes wide as she takes in the numerous scars marring his skin. Reaching out hesitantly, she asks if his old sword marks hurt, prompting him to apologize for his unsightly appearance and explaining they don't affect his duties. However, her gaze catches on something far more unusual glowing faintly near his waist, resembling a dark, thorny rose seal. When she points it out, Cain looks down in genuine confusion, asking what seal she is talking about, making her wonder why he cannot see it. A sudden realization hits her as she remembers the noble's words about the charm magic fading after sleep, leaving her terrified that the magic is still active. Panic sets in as she wonders if the potion's lingering attraction effect is what's making her act this way, while Cain frets over her catching a cold and offers to bring clothes. Gripping his arm firmly, she stops him from leaving, though her mind races with hesitation over this completely unfamiliar situation. Sitting on the edge of the bed in her nightshirt, she refuses to let go, prompting a confused Cain to ask if something is wrong. She looks down, her face flushed red as she struggles to articulate the strange, magically induced desires swirling within her. Suddenly, she moves over him, pinning a startled Kane back onto the bed in a dominant position. Straddling him, her face is intensely flushed and glistening with sweat as she completely succumbs to the lingering effects of the charm magic. Lying flushed in bed, Kane breathlessly whispers Lady Victoria's name. A dark, satisfied smile spreads across his face as he confidently declares that she will finally accept his feelings. The tense atmosphere shatters when Fiona bursts through the bedroom door, anxiously asking her sister how she feels. Startled by the sudden intrusion, Victoria listens as Fiona expresses her deep worry over the recent incident. Pouring a cup of tea, Fiona casually mentions the forced drink and assumes Victoria's sudden fainting in the bath was due to poor health. Taking the teacup, Victoria calmly agrees while noting she feels fine, explaining that her attackers claimed it was a charm magic potion. A sinister smile touches Fiona's lips as she dismisses the attacker's brew as a cheap imitation meant for lower-class nobles, leaving Victoria confused. Raising a finger knowingly, Fiona casually reveals that the attacker's drink was just a poor-quality sedative, completely different from the original potion she had given Victoria. Shifting the subject with a chillingly sweet smile, Fiona completely ignores her sister's stunned reaction. Staring deeply into her teacup, Victoria freezes in horror as Fiona pointedly asks what she was just planning to do with Sir Kane. Panic sets in as Victoria realizes Fiona knows about Kane's charm magic, especially when Fiona gloats that physical contact would have dangerously reversed the attraction onto Victoria herself. Desperately trying to organize her chaotic thoughts, Victoria realizes she must stay calm after hearing Fiona's casual confession about supplying the potion. Connecting the dark dots, she wonders if the original Victoria ordered the charm potion, proving that Fiona was an active conspirator in the twisted plot. Gazing at her sister's unsettling smile, Victoria questions if there is an even darker motive hiding behind Fiona's cheerful facade. Pushing her fears aside for now, Victoria quickly masks her grim expression by adopting an arrogant persona and declaring that she is simply bored. Twirling her hair dismissively, she claims Kane's constant obedience has become annoying and suggests it is time to end the spell, leaving Fiona visibly shocked. Recovering her nerve, Fiona angrily snaps that the old, ruthless Victoria would have mercilessly exploited this opportunity to the very end. Sweating nervously behind a forced smile, Victoria internally laments the original body owner's terrifyingly cruel reputation. Fiona gleefully recounts how Victoria used to humiliate Kane publicly, punishing him for his arrogance and reminding him that he was merely the son of a traitor. Clutching her chest with dark amusement, Fiona claims Victoria only felt at ease after finally gaining absolute control over the night. Mocking Victoria's sudden submissiveness as a joke, Fiona is abruptly dismissed when Victoria coldly orders her out so she can sleep. Turning to leave with a wicked grin, Fiona brushes off the sudden dismissal as just another one of her sister's infamous mood swings. Left alone in her room, a horrified Victoria resolves to break the terrifying magic after finally realizing the true extent of Kane's cruel subjugation. Thinking of the scarred knight, she silently vows to walk her own path and guide them both toward a better future. Haunted by Fiona's confession about the original potion, Victoria realizes her next crucial step. She determines that she must urgently investigate the dark mysteries of the original Victoria's past. Working late into the night at her desk, she sighs over her persistent bad habits despite being given a second chance at life. Poring over a thick grimoire, she notes that she is finally gaining a deep, fundamental understanding of this world's magical mechanics. She learns that magic is strictly limited to natural-born sorcerers, meaning ordinary humans like Victoria, Kane, and Fiona must rely on highly restricted magical tools or potions. Realizing why kingdoms strictly ban terrifying abilities like charm magic, she agrees that heavily punishing such dangerous misuse makes perfect sense. Victoria realizes the dire situation requires a solution, knowing that meddling with magic will not go unnoticed. She deduces that since the problem started with a magical tool, the solution must also come from one. Kane offers his help, and Victoria orders him to act as her protection while she heads into town to visit the magic tools shop. She explains they are heading to a notorious, crime-filled district called Sealed Alley to find a hidden shop. Kane bluntly refuses as they walk together through a busy marketplace. Wearing a dark hood, Victoria marvels that the chaotic city described in the novel stands before her exactly as she imagined. A strange man approaches her closely, calling her stunning while warning her to be careful. Kane violently shoves the man away and firmly orders Victoria to lower her hood more. Trembling slightly, Kane admits he cannot shake the memory of that day from his mind. He points the way forward, signaling that the shop they are looking for is nearby. He suddenly grabs her hand, claiming it is the best way to avoid attracting attention while she questions him in shock. Smiling gently, he promises to protect her no matter what, making her realize that a knight escorting a hooded figure is highly suspicious anyway. Flustered by his touch, Victoria mentally admits she still cannot understand what goes on in his mind. Their hands remain tightly intertwined as they continue walking. She wonders how simply holding his hand brings her such a profound sense of reassurance. When he pauses to look at her, she tries to pull away, arguing that holding hands makes them stand out even more. A sudden commotion interrupts them as a group of men chases down a young boy. The men justify their bullying by claiming the boy's father is a thief, insisting the son must pay the price. Kane coldly dismisses the scene, noting the accusation might not be baseless. Victoria steps forward to defend the boy, arguing that a parent's crime does not give anyone the right to hit a child. She fiercely declares that attacking this child means it would be fair for the men's own children to be beaten in the future. The men flee in shame as Victoria nervously realizes she completely failed to avoid drawing attention. The rescued boy bows deeply and thanks her profusely for stepping in. Kane stares silently at Victoria's gentle, smiling face. A dark memory flashes through his mind of someone calling him a filthy lineage of traitors. He remembers a bruised young boy smiling brightly at him. He internally obsesses over her smile and kindness, darkly wishing they were his alone while wondering if she treats everyone this way. Victoria snaps him out of his intense trance, calling his name in concern. She notes he seems strange and offers to stop, but he denies any problem and urges them to continue to the shop. Arriving at the shop, Victoria orders Kane to stay outside so he does not make the shopkeeper nervous, commanding him to enter only if an emergency happens. Victoria explores a magical shop, marveling at tools she has only seen in books as the shopkeeper asks if she needs anything specific. Introducing herself as Victoria Rosewind, she thinks to herself that she must find some useful magical tools here. The flustered shopkeeper guides her to the inner room and presents the Dew of Memories, a luxury potion that allows the drinker to relive past memories in their dreams. Victoria agrees to buy the wonderful item, but the greedy shopkeeper assumes she lacks real knowledge and tries to scam her by charging $5 million. Shocked by the absurd price, Victoria glares at the woman and notes she could buy 10 potions with that amount, demanding to know if she is being deceived. When Victoria casually wonders aloud if she should report this to her father, the terrified shopkeeper profusely apologizes and claims it was just a misunderstanding about her luxurious lifestyle. After the shopkeeper explains that genuine charm potions are incredibly rare and banned for altering emotions, Victoria takes the chance to ask if her sister recently bought one there, but the shopkeeper insists she is mistaken. Stepping out of the shop as a passerby tries to flirt with her, Victoria realizes the charm potion source remains unknown but hopes the memory dew will help her break the magic's influence. The scene shifts to Victoria watching Kane completely ignore a woman who is aggressively trying to flirt with him and asking to spend time together. Kane abruptly turns his attention to an astonished Victoria, stating he has been waiting for her and asking if she is leaving already. As Kane gently asks to hold her hand, Victoria anxiously wonders if his gentleness is just a result of the magic and fears how he will see her once the effect wears off. Back in her bedroom, Victoria drinks the Dew of Memories, declaring she has no choice left but to break the spell's influence. As she falls asleep, her consciousness dives into the original Victoria Rosewind's memories, hoping to uncover hidden events that were never mentioned in the novel. Inside the dreamscape, she is immediately shocked to see Kane appearing in the memory. Realizing she is witnessing the original Victoria Rosewind's past firsthand, she watches the scene unfold in a grand hall. The original Victoria haughtily confronts a low-born noble who was recently kicked out of a party, mocking his insignificance while he nervously asks to speak quietly elsewhere. Suddenly, Kane intervenes, effortlessly disarming the furious noble who attempts to draw a dagger on Victoria. While the noble screams about wanting revenge against the damned woman, Kane calmly restrains him and orders the guards to be called. Kane coldly tells the restrained man that trying to earn favor won't change his reputation as a traitor, adding that he is merely doing his duty as a knight. The original Victoria finds Kane interesting and offers to accept him as her knight, carelessly mentioning that the noble he just stopped fell into poverty because of her. Kane immediately rejects her offer, flatly stating he cannot faithfully serve a master who lacks mercy and loyalty. Later, the original Victoria complains to a dark-haired woman named Fiona about the rude knight, furious that a mere descendant of traitors dared to reject her invitation. Fiona smiles wickedly and hands Victoria a dark bottle, claiming it is a magical potion of charm and seduction that will force the man to completely submit to her. Fiona explains that if Kane drinks it, he will fall madly in love, giving Victoria the ability to control him however she wishes. The next day, Victoria executes her plan by paying a poor old woman in the city to help exploit Kane's strong sense of responsibility. After offering Kane a cup of water as a token of gratitude, the old woman fakes a collapse so the dutiful knight will carry her home. Unbeknownst to him, the water he drank was secretly spiked with the charm magic potion. Soon after, a heavily flushed and bewitched Kane kneels before Victoria, happily agreeing to become her knight. Observing this from within the memory, the modern Victoria is disgusted by how dreadful it was to deceive Kane like that. As the memory scene suddenly shifts to a ruined library, she wonders if Fiona tore the spell books and ponders why she gave the seduction potion to Victoria in the first place. Spotting a striking pair across the hall, Victoria immediately recognizes the woman as Lizzie, the beloved heroine of the original novel. As the couple approaches, Lizzie offers a polite but cautious greeting to Lady Victoria. Annoyed by the silent reception, the bespectacled man coldly asks Victoria if she is hard of hearing. Introducing himself as Royal Mage Giselle Flandor, he warns her to watch her associations, prompting Victoria to haughtily retort that nobles need not greet commoners. Glaring with intense hostility, Giselle steps close and warns her that continuing down this path will have dire consequences. He chillingly predicts that at her current rate of cruelty, she will die soon. When Lizzie anxiously interrupts to ask if Victoria was being mean, Giselle dismisses it, leaving Victoria to angrily demand he stay out of her business. Looking into a mirror with a burning face, Victoria uncovers a deeply hidden memory revealing her original body's intense attachment to Kane. Overwhelmed by the raw power of that lingering emotion, she wonders if the suffocating feeling is merely a dangerous side effect of the charm magic. Sitting at her desk later, she maps out the novel's timeline and realizes an upcoming incident might provide the perfect clue to breaking the curse. Her prediction comes true when an emergency monster extermination forces even the deeply obsessed Kane to leave her side. Kissing her hand devotedly, Kane vows his heart will remain with her, while Victoria internally celebrates his absence as a golden opportunity. Forcing a gentle smile, she wishes him a safe return while silently cursing her inability to perfectly mimic the original Victoria's cold attitude. Watching his departure, she recalls a fragmented memory of Kane before the devastating seduction spell took hold. She hopes that his unwavering sense of knightly duty remains intact beneath the magical compulsion. Several days later, a maid interrupts Victoria's reading to announce a visitor from the royal court mages. Giselle Flandor enters her room brandishing a sealed envelope, sharply questioning why she sent him such a suddenly heated letter. Victoria stares at the royal mage, remembering that he is destined to become one of the heroine's devoted lovers in the novel. Apologizing for the threatening tone, she internally gambles that a mage of his exceptional caliber must know how to break the charm curse. Giselle dismisses her pleas, coldly stating he only came to warn her against writing such ridiculous threats. Smiling with arrogant confidence, he assures the notoriously wicked Victoria that he has absolutely no secrets to hide. His smug composure shatters instantly when she casually asks if she should broadcast his secret espionage missions for the king. She recalls from the novel that Giselle's public persona as a loyal royal mage was merely a front for his highly confidential covert operations. Sweating under his sudden, murderous glare, she realizes the massive risk of her gamble but refuses to back down. Dropping his polite facade entirely, Giselle orders her to get straight to the point. Relying on his underlying sense of justice, Victoria openly confesses to cursing her knight and demands he teach her how to break the charm magic. Visibly thrown by her reckless honesty, Giselle admits he doesn't understand her motives as he approaches her sofa. Leaning over her with terrifying magical intuition, he abruptly declares that her soul does not match her physical body. Gently tilting her trembling chin upward, the mage softly commands her not to be afraid. Pinning her against the cushions as the door mysteriously shuts, he flashes a dark smile and murmurs that he is simply granting her wish. Leaning in with a knowing smile, the mage finally offers to tell Victoria exactly how to break the powerful seduction spell. Watching through a glowing crystal ball, Fiona scowls in frustration as constant interruptions prevent her from hearing their conversation clearly. Glaring at the scrying orb, the younger sister darkly concludes that this mysterious mage must be the one actively obstructing her secret plans. She reflects bitterly on how her older sister used to be naive and easy to manipulate, realizing Victoria has recently become an entirely different person. Clutching the crystal ball tightly, Fiona refuses to let things continue this way and wonders if this strange man is the catalyst for her sister's sudden transformation. Narrowing her eyes with malicious intent, she silently vows that Kane will still have to play his proper role in her grand design. Meanwhile, the mage leans intimately close to Victoria, his hand gently resting near her face as he mockingly whispers for her not to tremble. Gripping her wrist firmly, he dramatically prepares to reveal the true method for undoing the dangerous charm magic. A sly smirk crosses his face as he suggests that physically uniting with Kane should be an incredibly easy task for her. Stunned by the revelation, Victoria realizes that if his method is correct, a physical union is the only way to reverse the powerful attraction spell. Observing her genuine shock, the mage narrows his eyes and instantly deduces that Fiona had been lying to him all along. Stepping back, he mocks Victoria for carelessly using an attraction potion without even understanding how such magical tools truly work. Victoria stares back in absolute confusion while the mage adjusts his glasses with a cold, calculating glare. As the mage attempts to walk away and declare their deal over, Victoria confidently halts him by reminding him their arrangement was never one-sided. Smiling wickedly, she boldly declares that keeping his dangerous secret hidden is worth far more than the meager information he has provided so far. Begrudgingly impressed by her cunning, the mage acknowledges her opportunistic nature and quietly agrees to her extended terms before taking his leave. He silently decides he cannot reveal their conversation to anyone in the palace due to his own precarious position and secretive mission. Smiling to himself, he realizes her soul and vessel are not in perfect harmony and decides to keep a close watch on her. Glancing around the palace architecture, he notes with deep suspicion that the lingering magical aura is far too strong for a place inhabited only by humans. Deep within her own chambers, Fiona lets out a long, weary sigh as she drops her sweet facade. Her eyes darken with genuine annoyance as she complains that her older sister's sudden changes are causing all of her carefully laid plans to fall apart. Watching Victoria from afar, Fiona bitterly reflects that her sister has transformed into a completely different, unpredictable threat. She smugly narrates how her life has always been perfectly balanced with beauty and intelligence, creating an effortlessly predictable existence. Disgusted by recklessness, she sneers that only fools cause trouble, blaming her older sister for constantly ruining their reputation with wild behavior. Slipping into a dark room to meet with cloaked figures, Fiona reveals she harbors a dangerous, secret hobby. Surrounded by strange artifacts, she indulges her hidden obsession with collecting dangerous and strictly forbidden magical tools. Her monotonous life was finally shattered the day Kane arrived, bringing a thrilling sense of danger with his traitorous bloodline. Watching the dark-haired knight, she coldly wonders why he clings so desperately to his new life and how she might use him for entertainment. She cruelly concludes that a cursed born like him could never find true happiness, completely ignoring his existence until she acquired a very specific artifact. Staring into the forbidden magic mirror, her face twists in shock as it reveals a future where Kane embraces Victoria in a passionate confession of love. Kane forcefully embraces an injured Victoria, his intense gaze darkening as he buries his face into her neck. Gazing into a hand mirror, Fiona smiles wickedly and whispers how beautiful she looks. Fiona reflects on how Kane seemed obsessed with her older sister in the future, admitting her heart beat faster at the thought of seeing Victoria become a complete prisoner of her own expression at the moment of death. Smirking maliciously, she recalls a certain magical tool that could ensure this dark outcome. A few days later, Victoria realizes Fiona had been actively manipulating her to prevent the attraction spell from being undone. Standing alone in her room, Victoria ponders what Fiona's true goal could be if keeping the spell active was in her best interest. Suddenly, Kane returns from his mission and warmly announces his presence at her side. Turning to him, Victoria cautiously asks if anything strange happened while he was away. She gazes up at him with a soft, uncharacteristically vulnerable expression. Upon hearing he fought a magical beast, she fusses over him and internally admits she is softening toward him because she realizes he isn't her true enemy. She melancholically accepts that the real Kane doesn't truly love her, but finds bitter joy in simply being cared for by the man she loves. Snapping back to reality, she reminds herself that his affection is merely a product of the spell, brushing off his worried inquiries. Masking her internal turmoil with a gentle smile, she softly reassures him that nothing is wrong. Resolving to fix her mistake, she silently vows to break his chains and set him free soon. Meeting secretly with Giselle, Victoria confirms her absolute desire to undo the spell. She tells Giselle that she is counting on her help, reiterating internally that her primary goal is to distance herself from Kane. A sudden, imposing shadow falls over Victoria from behind, making her flinch in surprise. Kane aggressively seizes her wrist and throws her onto the bed, demanding to know who she was just talking to. Pinned helplessly against the mattress, Victoria stares up at him in sheer terror. Panic floods her mind as she wonders if he overheard her secret conversation, while Kane coldly asks if she is going to deny it. He leans down aggressively as she weakly pleads for him to wait. Ignoring her protests, Kane captures her lips in a forceful, punishing kiss. He deepens the violent kiss, causing her physical pain as she desperately tries to pull away. Pulling back just enough to speak, his eyes burn with dark intensity as he asks if she genuinely thought she could run away from him. Looming dangerously over her trembling frame, he furiously declares that he will never allow her to stay away from him. Trembling under his heavy gaze, Victoria realizes with absolute dread that he heard every word of her plan. Kane stares down at her with a chilling, fractured expression and demands to know why she would try to leave. Pinning her down effortlessly, he possessively growls that everything she has belongs to him alone. Horrified by his pathological obsession, Victoria realizes the charm magic has completely spiraled out of control. Kane descends upon her neck with a forceful bite, ignoring her pained cries as he fully gives in to his dark desires. Pinning her down aggressively, Kane declares with burning eyes that he doesn't want to hear another word. He silences her protests with a deep, passionate kiss as soft moans escape their lips. Pulling back slightly, he demands to know who she is choosing over him and insists she must stay with him forever. The intense moment shatters when Kane suddenly groans in pain and collapses against her shoulder. Clutching his face in horror, he frantically questions what he is doing as the magical compulsion battles his own mind. Watching him groan in agony, Victoria realizes with a heavy heart that the one who suffers the most from this twisted charm magic is Kane himself. Reaching out to touch his chest, she remembers that her ultimate goal is to break the curse, which requires their bodies to unite. Flipping the situation, Victoria boldly pins the shocked knight down and declares that it is fine to sully his pride and toy with him a little. Smirking at his flushed, helpless expression, she taunts him by asking if this filthy face is what he truly craves. The heavy curtains of the grand bed frame the silent window as the tension in the room thickens. Looming over the bewildered Kane, she decides that framing the encounter as her forcing herself on him will perfectly align with her reputation as a corrupt woman. Tracing his jawline with a seductive grin, she promises to grant the shameless scoundrel a night of pure pleasure. Blushing fiercely, Kane begins to strip off his shirt, revealing a heavily muscled torso that leaves Victoria quietly stunned. Straddling him confidently, she coldly commands him to try and please her since he is already here. When Kane nervously stammers that this is his first time, Victoria realizes with relief that she can easily take control of the situation. Her confident facade cracks into wide-eyed shock when she realizes his actual size, leaving Kane utterly confused by her sudden pause. Regaining her composure, she commands him to remain completely obedient as a breathless moan escapes his lips. Kane pants heavily, his face burning a bright red as he surrenders to her overwhelming presence. While Victoria internally frets that humiliating him feels entirely dishonorable, Kane breathlessly insists that honor doesn't matter right now. Forcing a wicked smile, she claims this cruel facade is the perfect scenario to prevent herself from becoming a laughingstock. Casting a dark shadow over him, she explains that playing the wicked woman ensures all public blame will fall entirely on her while he remains a pure victim. She verbally threatens him to perform well or face exposure, while internally apologizing and promising he will be completely free once the night ends. Gazing down at his flushed face, she accepts that he will rightfully hate her and want to kill her once the binding spell finally breaks. A bittersweet memory of his genuine, warm smile briefly flashes through her troubled mind. She silently mourns the loss of his pure kindness, admitting he was the only person in this dangerous world she could truly open her heart to. Intertwining their fingers tightly, she desperately wonders why her current burning desire feels so genuine when she knows his affection is just an illusion. Sweating and blushing deeply, she accepts that if this is to be their final peaceful meeting, she greedily wants more. Gazing up through half-lidded eyes, the scarred knight nervously whispers her name into the quiet room. Surrendering to the overwhelming heat between them, Victoria leans down and captures his lips in a deep, desperate kiss. Their faces pull apart ever so slightly, leaving them both breathless in the intimate silence. Sitting close together in the dim light, Kane asks what is happening while Victoria tearfully apologizes. Looking exhausted and somber, Kane sits quietly in bed as Victoria finishes dressing by the morning window. Turning away from him, she delivers a final, soft goodbye. Left entirely alone, Kane covers his face in anguish and whispers her name into the empty room. Now fully dressed in his knight's uniform, Kane walks through the palace and wonders why there is such a sudden commotion. Striding down the bright corridor, he thinks it is incredibly strange how quickly everything happened and how she never stops surprising them. He discovers the shocking news that Victoria has suddenly decided to travel abroad to study. The older nobles agree they will not try to stop her since it is so rare to see her this enthusiastic, leaving Kane staring in silent devastation. Walking through the grand halls, he desperately wonders what is truly going on. A dark intensity fills his eyes as he recalls what he already told her once before. He painfully remembers the heartbroken, tearful smile she wore when she apologized to him. Clenching his resolve, Kane fiercely vows that he will never let her run away from him. Sometime later in a bright flower shop, customers marvel at the arrival of a stunning new girl greeting them with a warm welcome. Smiling gently as she works, Victoria ignores the whispers of people wondering if the beautiful new face of the shop secretly comes from a noble family. The townsfolk gossip about how she suddenly appeared not long ago and begged to work there, assuming she must have her own hidden reasons. They quickly brush off their suspicions, agreeing that her mysterious past does not matter as long as she remains this hardworking. A young man blushes and thanks her for her service, completely captivated by a beauty that looks like it stepped right out of a painting. Sweeping the floors, Victoria internally reflects that her past life as a workaholic makes this small village life easy, though she obviously cannot say that aloud. A handsome, long-haired man suddenly enters the shop, greeting the surprised girls with a smooth welcome. Victoria nervously asks why he has returned so soon, and he playfully claims he just liked the food and wanted to visit again. Ignoring the confused whispers of the other girls, the man leans in to tease Victoria, prompting her to warn him that his frequent visits will raise suspicion. Looking at his face, Victoria silently acknowledges that she only achieved this peaceful life thanks to Giselle's help. In a flashback, Victoria stands before Giselle and declares her intention to leave her home as soon as she breaks Kane's charm magic. She firmly tells the mage that her house is no longer safe, begging him for the one thing she needs to survive. She explains that Fiona's true goals remain a dangerous mystery, and she knows Kane will definitely hold a terrible grudge against her once the magic wears off. Giselle easily agrees to her desperate plea as she realizes she must flee the novel's anxiety-inducing stage before it costs her life. Back in the present, she notes that while her family believes she went abroad to study, it was actually Giselle's magic that helped her escape. She plans to permanently erase Victoria from existence by spreading rumors of her own accidental death, confident the main story won't break without her. Clutching her chest, she solemnly embraces the fact that the villainous Victoria must die so that she can finally live. Called by her new name, Elisa, she smiles brightly at her co-worker, reveling in the peaceful life she has built under a completely fake identity. Victoria reflects on her discomfort with being called by her real name, wondering if using it as an alias was a terrible mistake. The dark-haired man admits he expected her to break down in tears living alone, but she smiles and notes that a busy, everyday lifestyle actually suits her. Staring downward melancholically, she expresses deep gratitude to him for bringing her there, admitting she could only live as a villainess back on the stage of the original novel. She looks at him with quiet relief, stating that she can finally live as herself without having to pretend to be evil anymore. The man coldly tells her not to pretend to be innocent, directly asking if she is still thinking about her former night guardian. Victoria reasons that her father must have already relieved Kane of his guard duties and assigned him a new mission. Confident that the charm magic has lifted, she assures herself that Kane must be happy to be away from her and has no reason to chase her to a neighboring country. She reflects on the success of her escape plan, noting that Kane is finally free and she has managed to survive. He scoffs and tells her to wipe the lingering look off her face, prompting her to defensively claim she has already forgotten the night. She looks away with a sorrowful expression, admitting to herself that she is at least trying to forget him. Recalling their final, passionate kiss, she realizes how foolish it was to think making one last memory would help her move on without regret. Fighting her own internal attachments, she firmly resolves to let time erase the lingering feelings she shouldn't have acted upon. While wiping dishes, a coworker interrupts her thoughts by noting her unusually good relationship with a specific customer. Flustered, Victoria listens as the women tease her, pointing out that the mysterious customer only ever visits when she is working under the alias Elisa. Victoria internally panics that Giselle might be monitoring her, quickly dismissing the idea of a romantic encounter aloud. As her coworker warns that it will be hard to stay alone forever, Victoria realizes the man observing her is likely just cautious after her past threatening behavior. The friendly coworker enthusiastically offers to use her plenty of connections to find Victoria a suitable marriage partner whenever she is ready. Deciding she cannot remain stuck in the past, Victoria smiles gently and agrees to think positively about the prospect of marriage. Honored that several people have already asked about her, Victoria internally resolves to make a realistic plan for her new life. As the dark-haired man quietly observes her from the doorway, Victoria cheerfully wonders what kind of people she will meet in the future. Walking into the bustling town square, she determines to build a solid foundation for herself before any unforeseen events occur. Strolling through the sunny streets in a beautiful dress, she greets a passerby as Elisa, reflecting that she never had time to consider marriage in her previous life. Watching a kind-looking man interact with the townsfolk, she feels a wave of relief at his apparent good nature. The vibrant town comes alive around her as dancers and musicians perform joyfully in the crowded streets. Suddenly caught off guard by the surging crowd, she tries to steady herself as someone suggests checking out the fun stalls nearby. She finds herself completely swallowed by the dense, faceless sea of festival-goers pushing past her. Standing frozen amidst the blurring movement of the strangers around her, a profound sense of isolation washes over her. Her lips part slightly as a heavy, melancholic silence drowns out the festive noise. She reflects on the passage of time ever since she first escaped to this unfamiliar town. The crushing realization that she is truly alone in the world continues to haunt her at every turn. Haunted by recent events, Victoria confesses to herself that she cannot help but think of him. She fondly recalls the overwhelming kindness he showed whenever he was near, wondering if it was simply because she received so much of it. Shaking off her lingering attachments, she firmly decides that she will not think about him anymore. Strolling down a bustling street with another man, she aggressively redirects her focus toward enjoying their current date. Turning to her companion with a beautiful bouquet in hand, she warmly thanks him for their time together. Admitting her initial nervousness, she expresses her hope that she behaved well and shares how much she truly enjoyed the outing. Gazing softly at her flowers, she contemplates that if things continue this smoothly, she might finally secure a peaceful second life. She dreams of slowly forgetting her turbulent past to live as an ordinary girl and someday build a family in this new land. Smiling brightly at her simple desires, she contrasts her past life of endless work with her new longing for quiet, happy simplicity. The peaceful atmosphere shatters when a sudden, heavy footstep echoes sharply against the stone pavement behind her. Kane emerges abruptly in full knight's attire, his face darkened by an intensely serious and brooding expression. Freezing in absolute shock, a bewildered Victoria stares at the knight and stammers out a desperate question about why he is suddenly there.